All right, we should be all good to go. Let me just make sure. So we got 23 guys in here already. So that is good. Discord saying we're live, so that's good. Restreams. All right. Let me mute that. All right, cool. We are all good to go. So, also I know they're queuing right now. I literally don't care about Cup. Please don't ask me that. Don't ask me anything about the stupid tires. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So we have 2 hours until lock, a pretty decent amount of time for a truck series slate. And I figured I will go super, super, super in depth in this one here because we should have some new viewers and stuff like that. So I figured I'd go in depth, to show at least new people I'm not an absolute idiot when I'm just saying, oh, I like this guy. Oh, I don't like this guy. And so, at least for today's show, we'll do the standard, kind of, just broadly talk about people left and right. And then, we'll try and solve the slate, not worried about ownership, just more so focusing on like what builds are going to be there, and then we'll focus on ownership and what I want to do to get different. I'm doing 15 today. Just decided to not do 20 because I'm pretty sure my day will probably end up being decided by Caden and Tanner Gray. I think 15 lineups is enough to get some diversity in there, so I'm not just throwing my mouse through the wall whenever Tanner Gray spins and stuff like that. But when we look at the race today, and we look through where everybody is now, when we view, and I mentioned this in the preview this week, and I'll read chat in a second. I mentioned this when I looked at. I did it the wrong way. I did too many races. Give me a moment. I got distracted. I did this in the preview video, and this is more so just for us to have a baseline and understand where everybody's falling in line at. If I can remember everything I'm trying to grab correctly, pretty sure I grabbed the wrong ones. We'll see. I'm pretty sure this is. When I take Bristol out, we'll use 3. Let's use 3, not 4. But when we look at where these guys are ranked at, just kind of entering, and this is usually standardly I'll do my own ranking system, but typically, especially in trucks and short track stuff, there's so many guys flipping between strategies and stuff. I typically don't like doing that. But when we look at where these guys are at based on the last 3 races, which is pulling, and yet again, this is racing reference. Sometimes they miss people. This is just, as a baseline to stare at people. We're looking at Martinsville, North Wilkesboro, and IRP, which is the tracks I'd want to look at. I'm fine with Gateway as well. But we're mainly just focusing on the short tracks that we've been at recently, entering this, based on this stuff. And this is still all the caveats of everything that happened in all these races and stuff. So it's not like a 1-to-1. I'm not really necessarily looking at one individual data point here. This is just to have this on the screen so we understand kind of where these guys are at. And so it shouldn't be, yet again, starting from scratch today, entering this race. Eckes, we see Ty Majeski, Corey Heim in there. We see Infinger, who has, really just showed up at IRP. Didn't lead anything at North Wilkesboro and really didn't do anything at all at Martinsville. Had a pretty terrible time. And so if we're looking at, Infinger moving up in terms of speed and stuff, it's coming directly off of what he did at IRP. Yeah, sure. Okay. Help from Bill McAnally. Like what do we expect? Okay. Duh. Of course, McAnally is going to be like, we've lost KBM and we lost GMS. Like, no shit, they're going to go to Bill McAnally. Like, so that's not a shock at all. Like, all these teams are like pivoting to try and figure out who they're going to get help from. Okay. So the fact that like, oh man, Cody Roball is, they're teaming up with Bill McAnally. Well, yeah, like those are the last 2 like standing to it's Tricon. If you're not getting help from Tricon, Nice, or Bill McAnally, like what are you even doing? You could be the Carroll showing up, doing their own thing. Like, and so like that's not necessarily anything of note in my opinion. We just understand that recent trajectory is like that's what Infinger did at IRP, and so entering this race and entering practice and entering Q, we should have we should, yet again, just starting from scratch, we should expect these individual drivers to show us speed either in practice and Q, and or identify that, hey, if Raja kind of qualifies poorly, as he did at Martinsville, real chance he's able to get through the field. If he qualifies poorly like he did at North Wilkesboro, we are expecting him to gain track. We are expecting him to pass people. Okay. Now, if he starts up front, we understand that he does not have the car to maintain the running position up front. Okay. So, we're expecting all these things, or we're aware of all these things entering this race. And so when we look at what they did in practice today, Yet again, they practiced during the daytime, the racing that night, whatever. When I look at just the practice laps in general, looking at, kind of just averages across the board, I really don't see anything too drastic. I removed all the actual laps in pit lane, but let's just remove everything under under probably 103 for most people. This is going to have a pretty big impact. It's just a visual thing that I'd rather have here. All right, we get rid of all the slow pokes possibly here. And it's probably going to be the slow guys on the bottom. All right, so we don't see anything, truly out of the ordinary. These guys down here are slow because of a reason. Like, they're just slow. That's just how it is. Okay, what's Caden doing down here? Well, some bitch ran, an entire marathon. So that is not a concern. Same thing with Nick, running long and stuff like that. None of that's a true concern. Do we see any like wild guys up here that are like, setting off the alarm bells? We see Garcia. Why is Garcia up here so much? Did he run a little bit of laps? Did he run fewer laps than everybody else? Is there a certain reason why he's showing so high in the average? Well, yeah, he basically ran like 15 laps and stuff. And so like, we're like, oh, why is Garcia up here? Oh yeah, he didn't run a lot of laps, so clearly he's going to carry, a higher average compared to the rest of the field. But we don't see anything really in this range that is truly surprising. You might be arguing with Ben Rhodes, but like, yet again, we're practicing different conditions. We haven't seen Ben Rhodes have any sort of true race winning speed. Where has Ben usually qualifying? Where is he? I'm pretty sure I just X out the wrong one. We're including Bristol. Whatever. We'll keep the Bristol one up here. Doesn't really matter. But we're seeing that like Ben Rhodes is really not doing much in these races in terms of win upside. We understand that Ben Rhodes gets wins out of strategy, out of adjusting in the race. Let me go ahead and put this back on 3 really fast while I talk. We understand that Rhodes like gets those wins and gains track position in races to where strategy is very much in play. So like that isn't shocking that Ben Rhodes was not able to, hold on and maintain the lead just because he had the fastest car here. But everybody up here, like that's perfectly fine. Like nothing truly wild here. And so we moved to the lap runs really fast. And everybody ran, over 10 laps. I'm just looking for the sake of this discussion here. I wanted to focus on the fall off that some of these guys have between their fastest laps and where they're at in a 10-lap run. Yet again, different track position, but still, you combine this with how people have ran in the past couple races. There shouldn't be like no real surprises here. Okay, like Lane Riggs underperforming. Ben Rhodes, as I just said, we haven't really seen anything from Ben Rhodes like that would indicate he's going to maintain that type of speed, et cetera, et cetera. And so we can see the guys that are having, pretty drastic fall off and stuff, and possibly either what they're going to work on, why they might qualify poorly, what their upside is in terms of their finishing position, just from looking at this, as we like just review of where they're at in practice. And so now we get to a situation where we can start looking at where these guys are in the long runs. And in this, we have to start looking at either guys who can offer us place differential upside or guys that are going to be running directly head to head. Okay. And so the main, 2 hombres here are going to be Majeski versus Infinger. Okay. Yet again, Infinger's coming off the race that he did show speed at IRP. We're going into a night race again, which isn't truly even going to be a night race. It's still going to be warm. Tracks are going to be hot unless they completely just, destroy shit. It shouldn't be entirely. Actually, no, it'll be like 7:15. Who gives a shit when the sun sets in Virginia? You know what I mean? They'll probably start racing the night, like true night, like lap 8 or whatever. So Majeski and Infinger are pretty much identical when it comes to the situation here. We're seeing that Majeski, we could argue or at least see that he got slightly faster. I mean, this is like 1/100th of a second, so it's not a major thing here when we're looking at Ty Majeski and also, if you want to view this on your own, I do upload this for free in the Discord. Like, this is not my data. I just pull it from NASCAR. So this is where Majeski is. We're going to highlight him really fast. Maybe you're like, oh, can you look at one thing specifically? Or, oh, can you view this or view that? That's why I just said that I uploaded for you guys. And so when we're looking at these 2 guys here with Majeski and Infinger, we see a pretty drastic. I mean, this is pretty significant. The fact that we had such a change between like Infinger is, trying to be there, and he slightly beats him in the 10 to, between the 5 and the 10 lap ranking, and then Majeski kind of goes back. Like, we do see that Majeski is having a better car over the run that Enfinger and Majeski have. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that, entering the race, Majeski probably should have been the main favorite entering, probably expected to be the most expensive on DraftKings, expected to be the guy who can compete for the win, et cetera, with probably Eckes, Corey Heim, and then Enfinger in that range. The fact that Majeski is pretty discounted, to be honest, makes Majeski a pretty decent play. And so now that that's identified, we see that like Majeski's in play. We see that, Enfinger is slightly slower than Majeski. Eckes starting up front I think Majeski is the favorite. When we look at these 3 races here, we've seen the performance that Eckes has had, and we see when we start looking at what these guys are doing on an individual basis, this is where projections come into this. It's not just DFS is not just who's going to win the race, who's going to play, what are we going to do, how are these guys going to do. Like, we're seeing that all these guys are pretty much identical in terms of laps led. Like, all these guys pretty much, but yet again, I'm pretty stupid. I'm not going to do this in my head because I would get this wrong. Average, just between these laps led, but like, frankly, between these guys, like, sure, Heim didn't leave at Martinsville. He didn't leave at IRP. If you throw Enfinger into this as well, which should be, that's Ben Rhodes. If we throw Enfinger into here, we see that, these are basically the guys who have led laps in these races. I mean, duh, but you know what I mean? Like, realistically, I understand that they have, Enfinger and Heim have 2 races with 0 laps led, but for the most part, from a projection-based standpoint, the default for all 4 of these guys is pretty much 44, 45 laps led as a projection. Okay. And so when we start looking at that, and we start looking at how to approach this type of contest or this type of slate, and yet again, this is all the stuff I do when I make projections anyway. Maybe I just haven't had to go this in depth for a while. But like I said, we have 75 people watching for a truck race. Eckes, Ty Majeski, Enfinger, and Corey Heim are pretty much the same plays. We understand there's a drop off between Enfinger and Corey Heim when we look at it as like, how many races have they led laps in? Clearly, these 2 have only led laps in one of the past 3 races, where Ty Majeski and Eckes, if I'm not completely an idiot, if I don't remember, they've led laps in both races. So from a projection-based standpoint, we have Eckes and Majeski projected as the 2 highest projected guys, which I think I have a note here. So this is me rating them based on what I have for my values today. So like best value plays, worst value plays. We're seeing that these guys are at the top of the line. We understand that Corey Heim and Enfinger, really unlikely that both of them dude, I've been getting so many calls. Today. We're just gonna turn the phone off so I can have like 30 minutes without my phone going off. When we look at Ty Majeski and Eckes, they are more than likely able to both lead laps in the same race. Okay. Whereas when we get to Enfinger and Heim, they basically cancel each other out. If Enfinger is going to work, I don't really see a situation to where, all 4 of these guys can lead laps. It's most likely 2. Clearly 1, most likely 2, on the fringe being 3, with one of these guys being the one of the 3 guys. Okay. And so if we're building with, your lap leaders, I like both guys up front, both guys starting first and second. I will have not laps. I will have probably 25%, if not 30% of my lineups having both Eckes and Ty Majeski in the lineup together. I think that's very much in play. Once we start looking at lineups that are having 3 lap leaders, we've identified that realistically, like we're not expecting Lane, Riggs, we're not expecting Sawalish. And really, like, past that, between these 3 guys, like, these are the true favorites to lead laps. Okay. Outside of strategy, outside of, just throwing out like Tanner Gray, for an example, not using this as what he's projected for, but like Tanner Gray, Taylor Gray, staying out to, lead a stage or whatever, or not pitting for some reason and leading like 7 laps. Like, that's not the discussion I'm having here. I'm talking about like the true lap leaders who, push 25, 30, 35% of the race led. When we get to that range, I think playing both these guys make a lot of sense. I think playing two of these individual drivers make a lot of sense. Um, I'm not really concerned about ownership between these two at all. I think we can very easily get different from there. When we start looking at playing all three of them, it's very much in play once we start going down and looking at, where people are priced at, where people are at in terms of value. It'll start making more sense of why I'm probably so aggressive and chasing so many lap leaders up front, which typically scares people off of wanting to do, start playing first, second, and third together. Some people think that's risky, whatever. I think we're very much in a situation where that could happen. So in terms of lap leaders, like, this is where I have them at. So Majeski's the favorite. Eckes would be my secondary interest. Enfinger would probably be the third, and the fourth would be Corey Heim. But I really don't think that matters. I really think it's just coming down to, if you're building with Majeski, especially okay, so we've identified those types of builds, most likely needing two of them. If we're starting to build with them solo, what is pushing that lineup build? What is pushing that type of approach? Like, if you're like, oh, I don't want to play time and just get Eckes together, we just take one of those guys, and then, okay, what happens? That means the other guy either underperforms in terms of speeds on pit lane, has a mechanical failure, has something go wrong. That would then lead towards, if you're not paying 10K for two of these guys, that means, a good portion of the 8 and 9K range are going to work. A good portion of the 9, 8, and 7K range. You can start building a more balanced lineup. So that's just the approach there. So anyway, that is the long-winded. Brandon, who's your favorite to win the race? Who do you like? That's it. I don't want to have that discussion because I think these guys are pretty much the identical play. I don't have a lean other than this. So by default, I guess Majeski's the favorite for me, but that's so little of the contest, in my opinion, or the race of where we're at. We got an hour and 40 minutes to lock, so I'm doing final time. Let's see what you guys are saying before we start getting onto the rest of the slate. But that is the top of the top dominator discussion that we wanted there. So James asked about what are we looking at in terms of the guys at the cutoff range. So when we start, I got to pull one thing. I got to grab one thing. Give me a second. We are looking at a situation where Taylor Gray, right here, clinches the playoff spot with a 24th or better finish, no matter what anybody does. Eckes clinches the regular season title finish with a 26 or better, no matter what Corey Heim does. Okay. That is pretty much the only thing that's locking people in. Ben Rhodes, Tanner Gray, these guys are all in play. When we're looking at these guys specifically, and this is going to be a very quick discussion here, Ben Rhodes and Tanner Gray are much more safer play. We're being forced to play Taylor Gray, starting in the backfield, whatever. Much more safer plays from a DFS perspective because, yes, Tanner Gray has a 5-point lead right here. As soon as the green drops, he's going to lose to Daniel Dye. Okay, so Tanner Gray starts the race out of the playoffs because he's starting behind Daniel Dye. Because Daniel Dye's 13th, Tanner Gray is in 25th. Okay, and so as soon as the race starts and we're at live scoring, Tanner Gray's out of the playoffs. The main thing that I like about Tanner Gray, not only from a DFS perspective today, because he's starting the backfield, but Tanner Gray is a pretty safe play because he's going to make the playoffs or he's going to wreck out. Okay, it's very unlikely that Tanner Gray does not perform in a situation that will put him back up into the top 15, and most likely in a better situation there. Now, these are his finishing positions. He's ran better in these races, but he ran into issues in both of these. So maybe if you're looking at that situation, it's a bit concerning. But when we're looking at where he's at, he's practically the 12th best driver out of the last 3 flat tracks. I would argue that Tanner Gray is pretty safe today. It's him getting involved in the wreck or wrecking out, whatever. But I'm not concerned about Tanner Gray at all. These guys are locked in, so it's not a concern there. Ben Rhodes, same dynamic as Tanner Gray, starting up front, going to play probably more of an aggressive style to try and get stage points, having the expectation that he's not going to finish up front in a top 10 position. So if anything, Ben Rhodes will probably stay out and grab stage points more aggressively than other people. So that's probably a detriment to Ben Rhodes. Everybody else back here doesn't even matter. They're swinging for the fences. If anything, that's you know the volatility in terms of DFS is only a bonus because then like they're either going to do well or not. Like anybody below pretty much Dean Thompson. Like I don't think Dean can really drastically do anything crazy. Lane Riggs, Garcia, Bailey Curry, Ty Dillon, Brett Holmes. We're not playing these guys in general. But like Chase Purdy starting 20th has a car from a DFS perspective, has a car. If he's starting 20th, I believe starting 20th. Realistically, Chase Purdy is going to probably finish 9 to 11 today. Only hindrance from a DFS point of view is if he stays out to catch stage points. But even then, like he's so far out that chasing stage points is stupid. He has to go for the win. So that's beneficial to us. Like Daniel Dye probably going to chase stage points. Friesen probably going to chase stage points. These guys are much more useful in DFS because they are just going for a win. But even then, everything I said here, like very minuscule. Like it's so important, it doesn't matter. Those are just my takes on these guys battling for the playoffs and the point standings here. Let's see. I'm going to do a 3-lap leader strategy. I would probably not do probably in single entry, I would not do a 2-lap leader. I would probably just specifically play Actus and Ty Majeski. Just really fast towards you, Alex. Okay, so once we start getting through this type of situation, or we've discussed everything here, what are the types of builds that are working through? Okay, so yet again, when we're trying to, at least when I'm trying to solve, yet again, not worried about ownership here, trying to have an expectation of what type of build is going to be working out, we start to see that. Give me a moment. We start to see that people who are showing off as good value plays, whether it be in terms of what their upside is, the car that they're in, the skill that they have, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. Like Caden Honeycutt starting 8th. I figured he'd start 7th entering this weekend. He is $7,300. When we look at what Caden is able to do in his car, it is very unlikely that Caden is not going to score at least 36 points today. If anything, it's probably going to be closer to 40. That 40 points is going to be one of the best scores on the slate. I don't see a reason why, truly outside of the mechanical failure that he had at Nashville, he would fall out of the top 10 at any point in this race. Okay, and so we see Caden in the 7K range as a pretty great value play. Okay, and that's, I'm assuming, like Saberson didn't update anything. I don't know where other people are, but from what I'm seeing, Caden's probably one of the better value plays. And the fact that he's 7K in the 7K range, we're not like having to punt with him. We're not having to do anything stupid with the builds. If we're already chasing 2 guys in the 10K range, it's very easy to get to Caden. So like Caden has a real chance of working out today. When we start getting to the 6K range here, also, why are there so many goddamn Connors in this race? Holy hell. Can you guys pick another name for your stupid baby? It's like all the idiot Brandons out there born in the 90s. Like, parents are so unimaginative. Like, can you guys pick any other name? Why do you guys have to name your kids the exact same thing? When we look at Connor Hall, him in the Bill McAnally car, okay, the fact that car defaults to that's Hill. The fact that car practically defaults, like in terms of what the car has, that's like the 13th best car in the field. Okay, when we then look at where Connor is at in terms of his practice laps, we can go ahead and remove this done since we're not talking about these fellows anymore. When we look at what he's doing in his practice laps, pretty good. Oh my God, he's one of them late model guys, right? Oh my gosh, man, real late model guy, not some short, like, who cares? Dude, everybody comes to that. Why is that a point now? Who cares? We see where Connor is. We understand this truck is good. Like 15th are great, 15, 16, great projecting. Some bitch is $6,000, okay? Real chance, it doesn't even matter like what you're projecting for. He's probably going to hit value pretty easily, okay? 33 to like 29. Probably 29 wouldn't get it done. I got him slightly higher than that. But like realistically, 17, 16, 15 is a baseline. Gonna probably put him as like, another great value play. Okay, and so when we start looking at just this in general, or we start looking at this here, we start understanding the types of builds we can start working with. We haven't even gotten to Tanner Gray yet, but we've identified 2 pretty decent value plays that we could build around. what happens? What causes these individual drivers to either not work, or what types of builds are these drivers leaning towards? Okay. Yet again, if we're using, let me go ahead and bring this up on my side so I can be aware of where we're at. So if we're looking at like just an Eckes, Majeski, Caden lineup, that's $7,100 on average. Okay. Connor Hall's 6K. If we're prioritizing, at this point, we've gotten our lap leaders, we understand our value play. Where are the raw points coming from in this field? Okay. It is the place differential plays. Because as I said, once we start talking about this, Grant Enfinger and Corey Heim, based on my stuff, are ranked, 6th and 7th, best value play on the slate. But this is saying if they can lead, that arbitrary amount of laps that we gave them. Okay. Realistically, they don't lead, they're falling down the field. Yada, yada, yada. So that's why Tanner Gray makes so much raw sense, because he's in a Tricon car starting 26 or in the 20s and stuff. Real chance he's going to get through the field. Okay. We start seeing that Stuart Friesen can score very similar to Daniel, very similar to Taylor, very similar to Raja Caruth, very similar to Chase Purdy. Okay. So my stuff might be, I don't think I have any Dean Thompson or Friesen at the moment. I'm probably going to manually, because I manually build my own shit anyway. I would probably prefer to take the potential upside that somebody like Raja Caruth has, probably at low ownership. You'd have to build right around him. Chase Purdy starting 20th. Real chance Chase Purdy is able to just finish like 11th by default, as we've kind of gone through. We look at his last couple of races here. Let's see where he is. Survey says 3rd, 24th, and 13th. Starting 20 today, not too bad. Okay. And so we start seeing that we're probably going to need, regardless of who we're chasing up front, and unless we're doing like a one lap leader type of build, it's mainly going to be 2 10K guys, probably 2 7K guys, at least a 6, and then Tanner Gray. Okay. So we can like note that down. As I said, we're trying to have an idea of what the optimal lineup is going to look like. So like 2 10K, I don't remember how to do the little squiggly equal sign that all the fancy engineers do. So I don't remember a shortcut key for that. So roughly like 2 7K guys, one one mainly, or one most likely with Caden, 2 if we're going like Chase Purdy and stuff. So like this is the main build. If anything, we could leave it as just one, but like this is the main build, probably with Tanner Gray. Okay. And then whatever value play, is needing to work in that range. Okay. If we start getting or building different off of that and understanding where points and the builds can go, we start looking at 2 10K guys. Okay. We see, and this is yet again assuming, Caden works. And yet again, this is where he's either being forced in by salary. Sims are probably going to like him. Projections are going to like him. So Caden's probably going to be very, very popular today. We see that Tanner Gray is probably going to be very popular as well. If we're doing this, where it's 2 10K, Tanner, Caden, which we are working with 64 left over, okay, for the remaining 2 guys, that makes it anywhere where you can punt in the 4, punt in the 5K range, because these guys in the back of the field, while they're slow, okay, when we start looking at how these drivers are actually performing, we look at Justin, we look at Mason. Where are you at? Let's see if, nope, Racing Reference is being lazy. This motherfucker's ran all the races. It's not like Mason hasn't ran the races. Okay, so like when we look at like Mason Maggio, still waiting for scoring again. We'll use him as an example here of potential upside in races that can get ugly, involved in wrecks. Oh my God, I hit the wrong thing. I hit tracks instead of trucks. We look at Mason. We use him at IRP. Did you not run IRP? He did not. Let's see. Like at 712 as the last one. So we're looking at Pocono. You'd be like, oh, it's not a short track. It's still like we can just, I'm using him as an example. I'm trying to find his stupid finishing positions here to show where he has been in these races as a pretty slow car. Like this is pretty standard for Mason's speed. It's pretty standard for starting positions. Okay, we start looking at where Mason is starting. You know, he's in the 30s and the 30s and the 30s. Not really truly displaying the speed, but you know, finishing 20th, 27th, 27th, 29th. Okay, now 52, bit, you know, extreme isn't even the word. Like more unlikely to work out. But then you start looking at like somebody like Keith McGee, which that would end up being the 22 truck. We are looking for the 22, unless he didn't start here. Big Rip. Will he be on this one? So I have to search around. Nope. We look at like the Reum Brothers guy. Could have used Steven too. But like we look at like what Keith McGee has been doing. Slow car. We see where McGee is at. Nothing out of the ordinary. And we see where he's finishing with McGee in a race like this with chaos potential at a playoff cutoff race, starting dead last. They're starting 35th. Hey, look at this. Started 36. Gain positions. Can't argue about that. You know? And these, I mean, yeah, sure. Daytona, whatever. I don't care. Like still 27th at Vegas, 32nd at Bristol, Charlotte, 34th, Gateway 27. Like these guys are in play in the bottom of the field. So when we start looking at, you know, what types of lineups are here to work off, and these are like, you can imagine like little, like these are trees. And then we have the roots of like all the 1v1s and 2v2s that these lineups can use. We have a situation where we can pretty much have a good idea of where ownership is going to centralize around and what type of lineups can be built, regardless of what we're using at the bottom in terms of punting in the 4 or 5K range, in terms of using 6K guys with Hall or whatever. So we see that it's most likely to be 2 10K guys in most lineups. At least the 7K guy, whether it be Chase Purdy or Caden or both of them, Tanner Gray realistically. And so once we see that, we can start understanding of how to get different, why we might throw in, you know, some one-off drivers that might not look good in a fantasy perspective, but to get different in terms of builds. That's why I was like, I'm a fan of Raja Karuth today. I'm a fan of where are we at here? Bringing my stuff back over here. For like one-offs and getting different. Like that's pretty much all I do is I figure, you know, how I want to use or how I want to go, and then start doing one-offs, especially because we've noted that Caden's going to have ownership. We've noted that Tanner Gray is going to have ownership. They're going to be quite chalky. So how could we take advantage of that? Okay, when we look at where ownership is going in terms of the truck series this year, and this could be related to a lot of things, but as I've listened to other people talk who are much smarter than me in terms of sims and what that is doing to very volatile sports, we see a correlation between, you know, plays that would already like, let's go back and think like a year and a half ago. Like chalk plays used to fall in line between like 42% ownership and like 56, right? Okay, occasionally we'd have one that pushed like 59 or whatever. But now we're seeing that plays that are showing that they're going to work, because like the way you would take it, like if ownership is projecting somebody as like a chalk play, like 44%, okay, the way to take advantage of that with the field or take advantage of that in your portfolio would be one of two things. Like you fade them or go overweight. Typically, you know, the EV move or the way to take advantage of that would be to have more ownership on them than what the field would do. Okay. Now, we've seen that a lot of pros, and whether it's recreational players using sims and sim products, sims pushing people, if the move was to go overweight on those projected good plays, okay, and the sims, like from an approach perspective, okay, so that's, you know, column A. Column B would be the sims identify those plays as like leverage plays, like, hey, that guy's going to work. We're going to force, or not even force him. We're going to like we're the AI, the Sims are gonna tell you that, hey, you should play a lot of that guy as well. Okay, and so when we look at like projected ownership um, as like a baseline, we then have players and Sims seeing that, oh, the projection is going to be, in the 40s and stuff. We should jam in those guys. The Sims lead to, hey, you should play these guys because they're going to work more. And then we get to the real contest, and the ownership had ended up being under projected because of all the things wanting to force those guys in. And so, like, when I look at like, you know, Caden Honeycutt, Tanner Gray today, as plays that would probably end up being, start being like fed by the Sims, fed by results, fed by, projected ROI and stuff. You know, this situation where, Tanner Gray's ownership should come in at like 40%. I think it's going to be a little bit higher, if not, pushing over 50. Same thing with like Caden. Like, I think it's going to be very unlikely we don't see Caden Honeycutt, eclipsing 40% ownership, if not more. And if it goes way more, then we can kind of lean it towards that. The Sims will probably split both Ekis and Majeski. And so, like, these guys will probably actually be, at least I would guess, to imagine, one of these would probably be the highest owned, probably Majeski, then Tanner Gray, Caden Honeycutt, Ekis, some form of, like those would be your like 4 guys. Okay. So when I'm building my lineups and we've identified like these types of builds with my own exposure, running 15 lines, we got an hour and 20 left. I want to, as I'm going through my lineups, my first, like, because I'm doing 15, my first like 6 are the ones my stuff is showing me to play, the ones that I think have the highest chance of being optimal using, like, it's showing me regardless of who I'm doing up top, Tanner Gray, Caden Honeycutt works. And so, of course, like, as I start going through with the 1v1s up top between lap leaders, the 1v1s on the bottom between value plays, I'm having 100% Tanner Gray and 100% Caden Honeycutt. So if I was playing, which is why, I'm trying to kick money on down the road to Daytona, but this is a situation where I think it's warranted to do what I'm explaining here. And so, I got through my lineups with, 100% Tanner, 100% Caden Honeycutt and stuff. And if I was doing like 6, 9, 8 lines, I'd call it a day and just be like, okay, I'm 100% on Tanner, 100% on Caden. I've hit a lot of the 1v1s that I wanted. I have a lot of outs in situations where those two individuals work. Okay. As I've started doing more lineups, understanding that Tanner and Caden have a high likelihood of working out, I then have to go in and be like, okay, because it's a volatile sport, I then have to cover those 1v1s that I've made with Caden and Honeycutt. I then have to do the same thing without them. So for me, I'm going to cap my Tanner and Caden Honeycutt ownership probably at 40% today. Okay. I think that's where the ownership should be at. I think I'll probably end up being under the field, but I think, and typically I've been really good at being able to have a lot of outs covered and just a small amount of ownership to those guys. And then I can build directly off of if those guys fail or just if they get priced out, especially Tanner Gray. Like, there's a real chance that Tanner Gray can get priced out, especially if we start having somebody like Chase Purdy work, Daniel Dye, Dean Thompson, Caden as well. Like, Tanner Gray is a really, really risky play. We've identified why he, has a high likelihood of at least passing a few people, right? Like, realistically, in terms of his speed. Now, we saw, like, even in Q, he'd start the lap and then he'd, get loose out of the corner and like lose like 2/10 and stuff. And that puts him, starting 26. Realistically, we're going to see Tanner Gray at some point in this race, most likely, into stage 1, into stage 2. He's going to be in the top 15. Okay. He's going to be like 14th, 13th, right at the fringe of hitting value, if not, a little bit above that. What happens if he wrecks out? Those are the types of things that I would look at, especially when I've looked at like the massive amount of chalk we've had this year and the fact that it's busted a lot. I feel like not even placebo. Maybe it was like, a like a perception that it was worse than normal. Like, if the ownership was where they should be at, a lot of the times, like last year and the year before, guys that we've seen at like 70%, 80%, 65% ownership, well, it used to be like 36, 38, 40, so it wasn't like a huge like news story when they busted. Now it is because they're taking out like 70% of the contest and stuff. And so I've been thinking, maybe the chalk isn't busting as much as it used to. Maybe it just always did that, but now the ownership's on him and stuff. And so I think it's warranted to, probably start being underweight on those guys that are showing up in sims so much. That are showing up as the pure value play. Same thing with Connor Hall as well. Like, I mean, he's starting 21st. That's certainly an unsafe, situation to be at for value play. That's why a lot of the, like, if Connor fails, and this can be failing of, he runs 23rd, he finishes 25th, he gets involved in a wreck, because we're seeing that he's most likely going to hit value pretty easily. What that means doesn't mean a win, could be whatever it is. Like, it just means he's working. In the situations where he doesn't work out, that leans situations to where, guys in the same price range are working out if Connor Hall doesn't. So, like, the direct pivot off of him is like Connor Jones, $200 more expensive. Say if Connor Jones and him doesn't work, then it opens up the 5 and 4K range, and so that's why, like, I think it's very much open on the bottom today. And I'm not, I'll probably be live for another 20 minutes. I just haven't looked at chat in a while, but this is like where my mind goes when I look at a slate, when I look at projections, when I build my stuff, when I build my lines. These are all the thoughts and processes I'm having as I go through stuff, and then, I do like sometimes I do like a 30-40 minute show. And the people ask me, what do I think about somebody? I'm like, I'm not playing them. I don't like them, whatever. I've typically done this with every driver. I've at least looked at different outcomes of different builds that can work with people, also, like, a build that I like today, if you're running one 10K guy, like the only Majeski or only Ekis, okay, that means the other 10K guys are failing. Who's going to be in the top 10 all day? That's a really, really balanced lineup. Real chance Caden stays in the top 10. Real chance Williamson Wallace stays in the top 10. Real chance Tanner Gray, and then even Connor Zilish can work out, because you're not having to pay up for the 10K range. So you can have the 10K, 2 7K guys who start and maintain a run position in the top 10, and then just nail place differential from here on out. And projection based, when you're like looking at sims, like, I don't need a sim to tell me that, one 10K guy lineup would indicate, okay, this guy leads, 160 laps or whatever. He runs away with the race, that's equivalent to the 2 10K lineups. This guy leads 85 laps. This guy leads 65 laps. And between the laps led and fast lap points, you're pretty equivalent on, projected points on these lineups before the contest starts. And so, like, when I'm looking at my 10K lines, like, those are the types of builds that I am chasing in those 10K stuff. And so, I don't know. I really enjoy slates like this, where they're kind of open salary. Like, you might be like, there's a lot of missed salary guys, but it's still not just like a super, super chalk type of line. Like, thank God we don't have anybody, like, any good person starting in the 30s and stuff. We can kind of play this race out of where people should be in terms of speed. Very easy to project where those guys should be and everything like that. So let's see what you guys are saying here, and then we can kind of keep going here. Let's see. 6K player. Yeah, so the Sims, I mean, my stuff is pushing that. I don't need, I'm well aware of that type of stuff. So I guess now we can even get more into the ownership stuff. So, like, how do we get different here? How do you build different? What do you do if you're not only able to get to 2 10K guys, but projections and sims and contest sims are showing that? Okay, what is the direct pivot off of that? Okay, and this is where people are like, "Oh my God, you play aggressive. That's a stupid idea. Like, what do fucking contest only pays out like 20% of the people anyway. Okay, we're all trying to finish first. All right. Yet again, if we're in that, like, limbo stage between finishing in, like, the top, from like the 18th percent of the contest, like 68th, like right in the middle of the contest, whether it's like the edge of cashing or like just in the middle, like, we don't want those outcomes. We want to be on the far ends of the spectrum and stuff. So how do we get there and not, have a bad lineup? Okay. And so, like, projection wise, I don't like Connor today, starting 27th, because, like, oh my God, all these guys can lead laps and stuff. But, like, if I like Tanner Gray, Connor's just a lower owned and a little bit more expensive version than him. You know, when I look at my projection for Connor in the 27th hole, Zilish, I got him for 15th. Okay, like pretty decent baseline, and clearly that's why I'd prefer Tanner Gray. But when we start looking at like what he can actually do if he starts slightly moving farther up into, you know, a top 10, you know, we look at him scoring 53 points, shoving out 10K guys. So if you're wanting to get different and not just shoot yourself in the foot by donating right off the bat, it probably goes more to like these types of builds, like your favorite 10K guy paying up for Connor, paying up for Tanner Gray, getting Caden, you know, and then ending your lineup with whatever happens there. Or like people like Raja, people like Ben Rhodes, Matt Crafton, you know, that's where like, you know, maybe that's why you want to get to Stewart. I probably won't do that. And I think, you know, Ankrum starts 10th. It's really hard to see him really compete because he's starting 10th at his price tag. Like he I hate when people say that, oh, he needs to win the race, but like that's like the only realistic outcome Ankrum works, because if the sumbitch finishes like 9th, he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything at 8th. He's really not doing anything at 7th. He needs to like have a monstrous day. So if we're wanting to approach this and get different from, you know, what's being expected, or, you know, build differently, like that's where, you know, the guys in the teens really start to look more interesting. Crafton, Raja Caruth, Chase Purdy. Like I love Chase Purdy today, purely just from a contest perspective, and a build perspective. Like I think that opens up so much. And I think he could be like your one guy to get different. Like you can play chalk stuff and then just get Purdy. And then like he starts 20th. We know the car he's in. Like realistically, he can finish 11th, not even having to do anything. We look at where Purdy is in terms of laps, you know, not crazy about it, but like I don't hate Purdy here, man. If things get crazy, which it's going to be a cutoff race, I'm sure people do dumb shit. Like Chase Purdy's a guy that I don't mind being on. Like Chase Purdy and Raja Caruth, like that's just where I'm feeling. Projections aren't showing me that, but those are situations or guys that I'd probably want to build around to have exposure to and stuff. And where are we at here? Oh, man, the Dean Thompson versus Caden. Now, Dean Thompson he's starting 14th, man. 14th. As I said, Purdy's probably my preferred pivot off of Caden. And yet again, at this point in the video, we understand. Like, we're not just coming here being like, man, Purdy's a great play. Man, Cruz is playing Dean Thompson. We understand that Caden's like the fucking play. Like, we know that. We're understanding, like, how do we get different in one situation or not? So now we've removed Caden. We're like deep in the weeds. Okay. We look at what Dean Thompson can do. Okay. Please tell me I still have this up. I don't. All right. We look at Dean Thompson here. See how many Deans we got. We got Dean Thompson. And we look at his last finishes, right? Which is coming off of 2 races, pretty good. Like the guy didn't do anything stupid here, right? So like this is like, and this is what I mean. Like Dean Thompson defaults to 9th in races where he's not screwing up. Okay. If he's starting up front, like in 4th, not going to play him because he's just bound to fall back. This is a bit extreme, but like that's not going to happen. Dean Thompson starting 14th. Okay. Like 9th, 8th is like where he should be at, you know? Like I got Dean at 36 points right now. Okay. That's like, 11th or 10th or whatever. He's like right at 40 with like a 9th. But realistically, I know it's a different price range. I know it is, but if we're like playing on, super small 99th percentile outcomes, I mean that's probably within like his probably like 80th terms from a DFS perspective. If we're like chasing those types of performances, why would we not chase Raja Karuth? Like, if we're like truly splitting hairs of like, man, please, if Caden fails, Dean, like it would really piss me off. Like Caden failed and then fucking Dean finishes 12th. That'd be so frustrating, because then like things line up and Dean still didn't do anything. But it's like if we're like trying to chase like those percentiles, like let's chase like Raja, man. Chase Raja's percentile. Chase Tanner Gray's. Chase William Sawalish. Like head to head between Thompson and William, if we're like who can potentially like finish in that range, like between like those two head to head, I'd probably take William to not mess up as much. So I think this is not a situation where I probably want to play Thompson. I've been playing him a lot this year. Like we know where he falls, Lord knows I played Dean Thompson nearly every race, and this is just not a situation where I'd probably want to chase Dean Thompson. I think there's just other guys. Him at 14th, like shit, I probably chased Daniel Dye before I did Thompson today, man. That's kind of where I'm at. Let's see. I don't think we have anything else really going on. I appreciate the 20 likes and stuff. I appreciate the chat today. It's been very fun today. No stupid questions, no derailments or anything. It's all been, very much contest-based stuff, which is what I prefer over like who's the picks or whatever. But I do believe that's really about everything. Okay, so another thing, like let's talk about Parsons really fast. When I was building stuff, I started looking at Parsons, right? And another one, like from picking up projection and throwing them out the window. Like this is not a projection based take. If we're like considering Stephen Parsons, we're looking at like builds get different and stuff. But when we look at like what Parsons has been doing last year, when we look at what he's been doing, that's 650. Oops. Dude, man, Parsons starting 27th, 6,900. I think he's in play, man. I think he's in play. I think he's in play. Quite ugly, nothing crazy there. But 27th, you got a chalk line, just getting different in one place, kind of like Chase Purdy too. Like, I'd probably want some Stephen Parsons just on a whim, truly, like nothing even crazy here. Because like, man, when they went green at Wilkesboro, not that, no, get off that. I'm not. Why is that even who's fucking posting that shit? But man, like this is a green race, man. It's a green race, came from 33rd. I mean, like hell, like 17th. I'm not even saying that. He started 29 today, finishes 22nd. Like Parsons can be there, 69. We're looking to get off of Tanner Gray and Caden. What is that doing to your lineup? So you're either pivoting in the 7K range or you're paying up or down to get out of the 7K range, like, so if you're in the 6K, Connor Jones, Stephen Parsons, like this is the type of play that I'd like just want to have in like one or two lines and stuff. And again, I'm doing 15 lineups today. As I said, I'm probably gonna have 8 with I mean, I'm like, let's see, I'm like 8 in right now. Probably gonna have 8 with Tanner. Probably gonna have 9. No, probably have 7 with Caden. And I'll have a lot of lineups with like one-offs of Parsons and Chase Purdy and stuff like that. I'm Rush Caruth, like I think this is a fun slate for a bunch of one-offs. I think a lot of stuff can really happen, and a lot of things can happen, and I don't think it's going to affect the leaders at all. I think these are the class of the field, even people staying up to try and win the race late. Well, I mean, if that's the case, shit's already hitting the fan. But like, I don't think the stupid shit is going to affect the leaders today. So if that's the case, it opens up a lot of the stuff down here. Okay, Stanley, I'm not going to build you a lineup. Okay, I know you can do it yourself. I know you can. Let's see. So Jason, I did talk about that, like right at the start. Actually, I spent like 15 minutes on Eckes, Tymajeski, and Finger and Corey Heim. We have an hour and 2 minutes until the start of the slate, so you have plenty of time to go back and listen to it because I am about to end it here. Let me check last minute comments and stuff. Let's see. Not too. Also, like, okay, so like the Parsons thing, he's over. Like, bro, I have one lineup with Parsons. I'm just saying, like, I'm being I'm like, oh, he's like a fun guy to play. I don't give a flying fuck if he overheats and stuff like that. That is not going to ruin my day. I frankly don't care. Like, I really don't. Overheat, who cares? Like, I'm playing goddamn Keith McGee today. Okay, how worse can we get, man? Jerry, probably negative or probably minus 250 to bring a fucking yellow out, man. This guy, there's so many stupid things in this truck series. I don't even give a shit about overheating stuff. It doesn't even matter. Don't even care. Like, when we look at what this clown is doing, D and Q, like this guy. Jesus, dude, this guy's so bad, man. So I'm not concerned about that at all. Like, if they like, dude, it's been like 4 hours since Q. One of those situations, like, if you can't fix a car that's overheating in 4 hours, 5 hours, you're in the wrong business, guys. Like, what are you doing? What are you actually doing? So let's see what Henderson Motorsports says. They did nothing. Let's check out, because there's not going to be any data for it. I guarantee you, if I search Steven Parsons overheating, I would do it on this screen, but I have no clue it's going to pop up on my Twitter, so I won't do it. But I'll search Steven Parsons' latest tweets. Let's see if anybody's saying anything. Hope you guys figured the overheating issues. Some random dude in his goon cave, David at the Fan Institute, followed by Parker Klickerman. Fantastic. Wow, incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. Caught it early in practice. Who really cared? Not even a concern. Not even a tweet. One random tweet about it. Probably mentioned in like the practice for a second. So like, it's like, dude, that's where I'm like, I frankly do not care. It's a contest play, game theory play. Like, who even cares on like these one-offs if they work or not? Like, straight up, that lineup is not going to work. Parsons is going to fail regardless. Like, realistically, he's not even going to be in play for DFS. I'm just speaking out loud of interesting stuff, but that's where I'm at. Yeah, I do believe that's it. I'm not mad. I'm just saying, like, a lot of times when we have issues in practice and it's not a quick turnaround, how this stuff doesn't get fixed is beyond me. Like, you have literally the clowns at like FDNY Racing, Brian Dessau and these idiot clowns. Like, what are they doing? Why are you guys at the track? You are a danger to society. You are a danger to the competitors. Like, get out of here, please. Let's see. I do believe that is it. I don't think we have anything else to talk about. So I will be live tomorrow at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'll decide tonight at like around 11 of when I'm going live. It'll be one of those 2 hours. We'll talk Cup and the absolute wild. This should be the race you put money on. I know a lot of these contests are filled. 10,000 or the $10 still has 1,000 spots open. I'd be shifting money from the Cup to this truck race. I can tell you that right now. but that's where we're at there. So I'll talk to you guys later, and best of luck. And yeah, let's see what happens to good old Caden Honeycutt. Also, speed. We got green flag pit stops. We're gonna have so many idiots speeding on pit lane, dude. Like, I think you got to diversify in this race, man. Bottom line, I think it's worth being underweight. You have anger issues. Got a few. Thank you, Stanley. I appreciate it. I mean, I got my hentai board over here. I got a Stewart flag. I got the Dale Earnhardt stuff. What? Okay, Stanley. No, because that doesn't work. What? Okay, Stanley. Let's see if you can figure this out. What do Richard Petty and Tony Stewart? What do they have in common? I'm looking for one answer. The chat can help Stanley. The chat has heard that. What do Tony Stewart and Richard Petty have in common? Okay, because Stanley, this is going to sum up what I like about racing. Okay, because I'm here for Rex. I'm here for chaos. I got anger issues. Like, bro, what a legend. I haven't had somebody tell me that in a long time. I know you guys. I know you guys got it. I know you can do it. What do they have in common? I'm not talking about championships. I'm not talking about wins. What do these two guys have in common? I know you can do it, Stanley. I know you can do it. Give you like 15 seconds. I know the chat isn't saying anything. I'll say it now. So the reason why I like Richard Petty, the reason why I like Tony Stewart, because they both killed innocent children. You know, they both ran over people, man. You know, that's the type of racing that I like. Attitude, Jason. As you type that, fuck no. No. Like Dale Earnhardt, I got him right behind me. Oh my gosh. You know the most amazing thing Dale Earnhardt ever did? This idiot 7-time champion couldn't do this thing called giving room to the inside lane. You know, like, dude, it's crazy. If you, I think he'd left. Yeah, he totally left. Yeah, he ran. Yeah, 305. 305 got me. They know me. They both killed. Yeah, see, the chat knows me. Okay, we know what we're signing up for here. Jake Garcia question really fast before we ended it here. That's hilarious. I love you guys so much. That was like killed somebody right off the bat. Garcia. That's now he said, you know, it's like, oh, he's going for the winner. I just don't see it, man. I'm probably not gonna have Garcia today. Probably just not gonna have Garcia. Also, I think I balanced it out a lot, truly, between my little rants and my weird screws being loose. I think that's a damn good trade for breaking down these idiot drivers in this form, talking about the contest. Like that's a good trade-off. Like, I have to have fun in some regard, okay? Like, if I'm not watching racing, I am laughing, I'm goofing around, I'm having a good time. Like, it has to be a balance. I cannot just be, you know, super proper and everything, because that's very tiring. But man, we look at Garcia. Where's Garcia starting? I don't think I have. Starting 23rd, okay? We know he ran short there. Oh man, dude, he's so slow. Starting 20. I just don't see it, man. I just don't see Garcia being playable. I just really don't. Stay classy, Chris. Yeah. I just don't see Garcia being in play at all today. I probably can't get to him in any form or fashion. I don't even know what situations would have to happen for Garcia to end up performing well. But anyway, let you guys go. See you guys tomorrow. Thanks for being here and being enjoying the content. I do appreciate it.